Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side podcast. I'm here today with Matthew Flint, who is the CEO of Blast, which is an exciting creative content finishing house. And I'm really excited to hear his story. And thanks so much for being with us, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. I really appreciate it. And in particular, I have to give you a shout out and appreciate the fact that you're acknowledging someone in the finishing business. It's not an area that gets a lot of attention and a lot of love. So kind of cool for you to do that.
Yeah, and I'm excited to learn more about it. I guess that's a great place to start is before we get into your story, I mean, maybe you can just quickly explain what the finishing, business is all about. What is it exactly you guys do at Blast?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm assuming that most people watching this are gonna, know the cadence of the industry in terms of the steps of things. But in short, the creative process is generally being done by a creative vendor working with the marketing heads of studios or the streamers. And then once they achieve a cut, they're not using finished material. They're not using the pristine quality material that is essentially going to be what is used for broadcasting or streaming. And so the finishing teams take over where the creative teams leave off. Once they have a lot cut. This is the exact version of the trailer that they want. It comes to us. And we take over from there and we replace all the shots with pristine, clean material. And then we mix it. We take all the audio tracks that have been supplied to us by the creative vendors, and then we mix it. We color correct it. We have colorists who go in and shot by shot balance. Many of all those shots are cut from out of context. So, there may be an indoor scene that's really dark right next to an outdoor scene. Or may be difficult to see the eyes of a character that they want to see to really bring out the emotional impact of that shot. And so we'll do a power window on that and bring out the crispness of the eyes. We'll just balance it so that they all kind of feel like they're part of one trailer instead of just pieces from the film or the TV show. And then the real particular thing is that we make sure that it's compliant with all standards. If it's going on broadcast, it has to have, adhere to all the sound levels, and it can't have things in there like smoking, content that you can't license, like a Coca-Cola t-shirt that a character might be wearing. And sometimes those things are not addressed or caught in the whole creative process because everybody's just focused on the emotional impact and the music and the way it's moving. And they're not paying attention to all those details. And so the finishing producers and the team that's working on it will make sure that stuff adheres and flag it. And ultimately, we're the last we're the last person that's going to lay eyes on it before it goes out to the world.
Yeah.
Now, if you miss those things, that can really take an amazing trailer and turn it into a colossal train wreck. If it gets out in the world. So that's essentially what we're doing. There's a lot of nuances. It's a lot of QC. It's attention to detail. It's just protecting. And I also want to emphasize that while it's not the creative vendor, and it's often not viewed as a creative process or part of the creative process, it's very much our mission to approach the work with a creative to it. A good mix can totally make the trailer, but a bad mix can ruin it.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason that finishing doesn't get a lot of attention, it's certainly not represented in the creative awards like the Clios or the Golden Trailer Awards. I think they should be, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think the reason it's kind of okay in the sense that we shouldn't be getting the attention in many ways, because a really amazing mix is not noticed by anybody. The viewer doesn't pay attention to that. They just have an experience. And that experience is because the mix really lifts the creative work. And that's really, I think, the essential goal of our work is to take creative work and lift it to its best possible potential.
Yeah.
And, and if you have a bad mix, somebody's going to notice it. If there's I think that like one of the areas that you can really see the difference in that is in paint and composite work, where you're removing a cigarette out of somebody's hand. That's a really hard one to do because the person's talking, they got a cigarette, they're smoking. And we have had studios who have wanted that shot in there so badly that they'll ask us to paint that out. And so if you do it really well, the audience is never going to know that he had a cigarette, never know that he was smoking. But badly, you have somebody who's got smoke in the shot and their lips are doing something weird, because you can paint that and kind of correct that. But if you don't do it right, then it just looks weird, and that's going to ruin that for everybody.
Interesting. I actually I did not know that was actually part of what you were doing, painting things out like that. Didn't know that was part of the process. So that's fascinating. How did you get into this particular space? And what was sort of your order of operations in this?
Yeah, I don't actually know if I know anybody in our niche of the industry who set out to get into, like most of us. I got into this industry not knowing that it even existed. Most people don't know there's a motion picture marketing industry, or, even think about who's making those trailers work. For me, what I was working in the creative side of the film business, producing, directing. And I started out as an actor. I was a theater in San Francisco, where I was producing, directing, and acting in plays. And then there was an opportunity for the film business. I came to LA, I think in 92. Yeah, 92. And I started working in the film business. And I did, I had a nice little run with acting and some films and television. And then I started producing. I met my partner, who's still my partner, also my wife. And she's a filmmaker. And we started producing movies together. And when our daughter was born, the road gets narrow, and you start to think about how are you going to have some consistency in income. And through our daughter, I think it was preschool, I met a guy who was a finisher, and it was for CMP. They used to call it CMP. Of course, it's called Motion now, but back in the day, he was running the post of CMP, and he brought me on and taught me how to be a finisher because he needed some help. And so I started out as a finishing producer, and that kind of took off. And then a few years ago, just in 2021, it was time for me to leave and go do something else. And so I left in 2021 and started Blast. And it has been a blast ever since.
That's awesome. And I'm excited to get into Blast and find out more about it. I'm just curious, what type of acting were you doing? What kind of roles were you in? What was your jam?
Well, when you come to LA as an actor, you kind of take what you can get,
Yeah.
But I was fortunate enough to work in some really cool films. I was in a Woody Allen movie, Husbands and Wives, which arguably I think is one of the last great Woody Allen movies. And that was a pretty amazing experience to spend a month in New York working with him.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I did episodes of Murder, She Wrote and The Night, which was fun. It was good. I loved it. Produced some movies that I acted in, that my wife and I did together.
That's cool. My grandfather was a huge Murder, She Wrote fan, so I saw so many of those episodes as a kid growing up. Yeah, Murder, She Wrote and Matlock. I was like all over that when I was a kid.
I think my episode was called Love and Hate in Cabot Cove, and yeah, ooh. I was a kind of a bad sheriff that ended up getting shot in the end.
Oh, that's that's pretty cool. That's awesome. When I saw you, when I see your profile picture, I'm like, this guy looks like he could be an actor. I've always saw your picture. I was like, man, Matt Flint has great hair. This guy looks legit. So it's not a surprise to me that you were doing some acting in your day. That's fabulous.
It was a lot of fun, to be honest. It is a hard business to stay in for a long time unless you make it big and can generate that name value. And I'm really had a wonderful time doing it, but I'm very fortunate that I ended up creating a pathway. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, and
That's what John Lennon told us, right?
I've just embraced it. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it should be. And who knows what's next, honestly.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I have a similar experience with music and my passion for that. And I did some touring years ago, and I have two little girls, and of course, at some point you want that stability, and you want to have a at home, and you want to have those things. And being in the tour bus can be a little bit of an exhausting thing. So I can totally understand. But going to Blast, what are some of the differences, and what kind of makes this special project for you?
I just had wanted to do something independently on my own for a long time.
Yeah.
I had the name. I had people who wanted to I had the name Blast. It was just locked into I had a logo. I had everything. I just kind of could see it. And so when the time came And it was a fortunate time in terms of how you could do things because the acceleration of technology after the pandemic
Yeah.
allowed me to be able to take that chance and build something and build a team that could embrace those new technologies and could embrace the spirit and philosophy of how I like to operate with a
Cool.
lot of transparency and honesty and passion and drive. And so when I created that, and I was fortunate enough to have these similar relationships with some clients that really wanted to continue to work with me. And so it's a slow build. We're just 3 years. We just hit our anniversary, which was cool. And then it's just slow build, and then it just kind of took off. And I think that if you believe in what you want to do and you can gather a group of people that can get on board with your vision, then it's no longer your vision. Then it's a we. Then it's like a collective vision. And that was my experience with this. And it's been really wonderful. It's truly, I think the biggest part of what I had learned over the years is that the work is what it is. You have to have talent and you have to know what you're doing. But really what sustains and produces the best work, I think in whatever you're doing, but certainly my experience with building a finishing company is building focused on culture, on the work culture first. And so we have just made the decision with my partner, my wife, Dorsai. She's an amazing creative mind and really is a deeply empathetic person. And that has led us to focus on the work from a deeply empathetic place and to create a culture first company. And that's just transformed the work.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was actually part of what I was very interested in when I was thinking about your move, because I know when I was reading about Blast, it was talking about creative content finishing, but it was with like new technology, with like the cutting edge stuff that's out there. And I'm always curious, maybe you could tell me what types of changes has occurred on the technology front. What kind of things do you guys use that you might not have used before?
Well, in many ways, the innovation doesn't just come from the technology itself. We are a technical company. Our little underneath our name on our website is innovation, creativity plus innovation. And, the creativity is the talent, is the work that you put into it with the sound mix, for instance, with the color. It takes an eye, it takes an ear, it takes experience. That's all the analog of that. The technical side of it is just using the latest technology that's out there. And because we are where we are in the world today, just like we can have a meeting and be in this recording session remotely, there's all these remote tools that can be used now. And that has changed everything because you can bring the mix to them. You can bring the color session to them. And that's really at the core of how what we're embracing is bring the work to them. The pace in which things turn around and finish is so rapid. It's accelerated tremendously. And if we can bring the work rapidly and then bring it to the doorstep of the client so that they don't have to leave, drive across town to approve something, and everybody's using this, it's not unique. But I feel like that the technology that we have embraced to do that is we've taken a lot of time to research and bring forth and deploy the best technology that is out there. And I think then the other thing that has really moved the needle for us is that we have brought talent producers to the client. So with a number of our accounts that we have producers that are embedded within the client side of the work. So we have crossed the firewall, if you will, and have producers sitting on the client side. That has really transformed everything for us because you could have a producer who's mirroring the role of a producer who's working for that company. And I don't want to name the names of our clients that we're working with for protective reasons, but we have some clients that have our producers sitting in with them. But they're doing that virtually so they can actually physically sit in with our team. So we have a finishing producer and we have a producer who's representing the client sitting right next to each other. And that has created a communication, really close the loop on the communication. So there's just instantaneous communication. And that's really been transformative for us because of the pace of the finishing. And, that a technological tool, that's a paradigm shift.
Totally. Yeah, that's interesting. What types of I guess what types of problems can come up in your side of the business? Like, what are some what's like something you guys have to troubleshoot often, or just kind of curious what it's like to sit in your seat sometimes.
Well, you can't always gauge the volume of work that's going to come your way. So that's like the biggest challenge that we face. And our goal is to move quickly and to hit their deadlines. And deadlines are immovable in our business. I mean, maybe they really can be, but we don't put that into our vernacular. Deadlines are immovable. And so 4:00 in the afternoon, when you get an email or a call and it says, hey, this is our situation, you just have to just do it. And, it's a grueling business, the finishing business. It's a lot of late nights and it's a lot of weekends. And that's where I come back to the culture, because if you don't have a culture of your company, if you're not seeing people in a way that they feel valued, if you don't, take care of their physical needs, because it is grueling. It can literally feel like a physical battle sometimes when you're having to go all night and on the weekends, but you have to get that work done. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, is just staffing, figuring out how much staffing you need, because again, your future is a little bit difficult to gauge.
Yeah.
So that's a real challenge.
Were you nervous at all when you first launched your own business? What kind of feelings did you have when you made that decision?
For me, it felt like, of course it's nervous to leave an organization that you had been at for 20 years and certain certainties, I guess, that were there. But it just felt so right. And I had such conviction. I just went for it. And it felt like that I was just, that it was just going to work. Nothing's going to work if you don't believe it's going to work. So I just, took that approach.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, it's always it's a difficult decision, but it's also a great thing once you finally have, when you're able to kind of be the captain of your own destiny. And yeah, that's exciting. I do really, from the music side of things, which is what I know a lot about from my career, is I know that, the creative person who's making the music, it's really important for their creative that it's not they only have their hands on it. Like, there are professionals that mix, there are professionals that master. So you go to all these different people, and often in the music business, it's like, if you find somebody that's going to do it all for you, that person that is the one-stop shop, there's a reason why everyone sort of has their sort of niche. If you have just your own creative ears invested in something, you can't really see it from the outside, and I think that's maybe something that's kind of special about, your business, is it's like, it's really like, it's a really important piece of the pie. It's like, and I find that fascinating.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's a really great analogy. And you're right. I think that there are creative vendors, and there's so many out there, and there are some that can do it better than others, but they will do the finish or attempt to do the finish. And some have done it some big ones have done it maybe the right way and built, finishing, and try to keep those people in that lane. But for the most part, I feel like that if it doesn't have a proper finish on it, it's not going to reach its highest potential. And to your point, if you're the editor and you're in love with that mix, you kind of achieve that mix in your offline world, it actually probably won't even get out there in the world because it won't be legal.
Yeah.
And we run into that issue a lot. Of course, we invite the editor and the producers and the creative folks who have cut the trailer. They come in for the approval process, and we want them to be happy. And we work really hard and have those good relationships with them to get there. But the final mix, it's got clean dialogue. It has, and you can hear that it's not clean, but maybe the offline editor didn't pay attention to that because it sounds fine to him, to her. So I feel like that you're right about that. And then the other thing is the consistency. Every studio or every, streamer has its own particular set of deliverables, and they're vast and numerous. own set of rules, own set of places where it goes out into the world. And if you're not the same team achieving that, that's going to be very difficult from somebody coming on the outside trying to decipher some finished document. So I think it's incredibly important that the studios, that the streamers have a finisher, have a team that they rely on, rather than just entrusting that a creative vendor is going to be able to get that right.
What are the exact people that positions that are in your agency? I know you just mentioned online editor and you said offline editor. So offline editor is probably the person that originally edited the trailer piece, and the online editor is the finishing editor, which is working in your facility, I imagine.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. So we have online editors. Maybe you can tell us some others. I know there's colorists. There's
re-recording graphic artists. We're creating graphics. They have a graphic department, obviously, at the creative vendor, but there are many times that they need to be repaired, fixed, new versions made, all the many different versions now, today, tomorrow, like all the things that the end cards need to be created. And then the finishing producers themselves. You have to have a good amount of finishing producers. This really comes down to a human experience and human eyeballs on the material. And then, taking all that information that comes from the client, and then convey that, produce that with the mixer, with the online editor, with the colorist. Like many rounds go out, and hopefully not too many, but a round goes out to the client. They look at it, they have notes. Somebody has to convey those notes and interpret those notes back to the mixer. So we have a team of producers, we have a team of editors and graphic artists and mixers. Those are the primary roles.
And the graphics artists are the folks that, like you had mentioned in our conversation earlier, that could be taking a cigarette out of somebody's hands or scraping the Coca-Cola off the shirt or doing a lot of those types of things, as well as they don't do color, or is it mostly?
No, that's mostly, if you're fortunate, you can have an online editor who's a very good VFX artist, but we also have, specific VFX artists on our team as well. So that's a good call out. VFX is a big part of it. And then there's the back end. There's a lot of media you're dealing with, because you're getting the original episodes or the full feature in 4K. You're downloading that, you're moving that around. Because it's so technical, you have to have engineers and media management people and security. You have to pull that in the world of security, where that's everything. If you lose a feature, that's just devastating. So you have to really pay a lot of attention to that.
Yeah. Is there any big wins that you've had over at Blast that you could tell us about? Any like exciting campaigns or pieces that you worked on that are standouts?
I will say this, that we worked on Three Body Problem this year with Netflix, and that was a partnership that was a really wonderful experience.
Cool.
Really exciting project on that one. And then we've done some more recent ones that have they're new for this studio. I don't want to say who it is, but
Sure.
It's a streamer that is doing some new things, and they're like busting out. We kind of probably know who they are, because I say they're the biggest in the universe right now, but they're doing some new things, and we've been able to be part of that. And so I'm very proud of that fact, and feel good about it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm trying to make everybody comfortable, not having to disclose anything they don't like. This is a non-hot seat podcast, so definitely stop me if I'm being too pushy in any way.
And obviously, we're also need to kind of keep that close to our vest.
Totally.
Three Body Problem is out there in the world, and so I feel comfortable in saying.
Yeah.
But that's just a call out. We've done a lot. We did over 100 titles this year, so I could name numerous. But
well, what do you do outside of this world in finishing? Do you have what kind of hobbies or things are in the life of Matthew Flint?
I have quite a few when I have time, and I unfortunately feel like I don't have enough time to pursue that. But to name a few, I work with my wife again in the filmmaking, where we have a foundation that's tied to that. So we're raising money for projects, other people's projects that have some type of a story or an informative piece that really touches on humanity, on some type of elevating or educating a spiritual nature, or let's just say it's a filmmaker comes to us and they have a story that really focuses on environmental impact or environmental change. that would fall into that category. And then we really work to see if we can offer seed money for that, produce it for them, or offer post-production services, some part of it. So we spend a lot of time in looking at those kinds of projects and either producing them or helping get them produced. On a more personal side, I do ceramics, for instance. I'm a ceramic artist, and that's a very, very calming thing that I like to do. And then I just bought a new home, and so lately I've been spending a tremendous amount of time renovating this home.
Nice. Do you like doing that, the work around the house and doing that kind of stuff,
Well,
or hiring people to do it for you?
Renovation, so definitely hiring people.
Yeah.
To do that, but that's a full-time job in of itself.
Yeah, my house was from the 1950s. I only know that because I was able to see that on the original toilet that was still in our house recently when we got it changed. But yeah, this is my wife and I we both love like mid-century modern style, which is it's not as cool in Vermont here as it is in LA. But we got a pretty nice house with like beautiful high ceilings and those classic, like the balls that hang from the high ceilings that are the big light fixtures. And one other thing that was pretty cool was the house came with a grand piano. It came with a 1905 Steinway grand piano. And what was so fun was like the guy who owned this home was a professor at UVM right down the street. He was an agricultural sciences professor. And he was, an elderly man. He was very concerned about the piano and like, oh, I got to get rid of this piano before this young couple moves in. And like, what are we going to do about it? I was like, just leave it here. I'll play the thing,
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's sort of like cosmic that we were able to find this place that had, But anyway, I'm going on a tangent. But I enjoy the restoration and like kind of like the little projects, even though it can be a headache. Like when I had to replace the boiler, I was sort of like, wow, that was really painfully expensive. The other stuff was pretty fun.
I certainly know what you mean by that. That can really hit you when you're restoring a home. Or, when I was first out of college and I moved to San Francisco where I started my professional career, the first job I got was a job called Handy Persons. And it was a construction company that focused on small jobs, but some of the jobs weren't very small. And with no training whatsoever, I was like you'd wake up in the morning, come in, they'd hand you a stack of work orders, a truck with tools in it, and a Thomas guide, because there was, this was long before we had smartphones. In San Francisco, I just moved there. And I had, just like all day navigate San Francisco to one place or another and have to fix stuff. And that was, I could do it. I could just make it work. Here I am this many years later. I don't fix stuff anymore. I just can't fix stuff. I have to hire people to do that.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds like the most stressful job on the planet.
No, it was awesome. It was really, really great.
Yeah. I am really, really not handy. Like I can't even put the air conditioner in the wall. Like my wife does like all of the, there is definitely no gender roles in my household. Like I have it's completely different. I cannot do any sort of handy work. Patient and skillful at all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I tip my hat to anybody who can do that type of stuff, because it's out of my element.
Yeah, suppose if I was had to do it all, I could do a good deal of it, but I just haven't done that. But I do have the experience of building things and putting things together, and I think that's a long life-serving thing to be able to figure out. My father passed away just about a year and a half ago, and I had his toolbox, and he was a very handy man and could use his hands, and I have his tools. Every time I grab that screwdriver, and they're just beautiful old, like wooden, tinted, and I grab his hammer and and I just kind of fills me up with confidence to go do something. But that being said, I pay for most of it because, there are masters to our point of the creative vendor and the finishing side. There are masters of both.
Totally.
We should know which side of that.
Totally. What are the plans for 2025? Is there anything? I know some people, have big plans for the new year. They make some goals, but other people kind of don't see the new year as a change. What if any things do you have on your horizons for the new year goal set?
Professionally, or because can
either.
say this, that we are kicking the tires on some different real estate in where our offices are, because we're looking to expand into a different facility. So we're going to be building bigger stages. And so that's big because, we're looking for real estate. So as soon as we secure that, we're going to be highly focused on building that out.
Cool. That's awesome. Do you envision some people like coming out, like being more like an in-office type of thing, or still remaining kind of remote, or what's your model typically?
Well, when I mentioned the remote thing, we're not entirely remote at all. We have a flexible schedule. And
Cool.
so we're in the office like 3, sometimes 4 days a week and 1 day a week. So we're in the office.
Yeah.
What being remote really is about being remote to your clients so that you can get to them and not, enforce the need for them to come to you. But we're hybrid, and I find that's working very well.
Yeah.
And it's
Cool.
important in the office some. I think it's, we lose a lot when we're just entirely remote.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. I feel like that's has really been, from the recruitment side, hybrid has really been the model where it's that perfect balance of people getting to be at home, but also getting that collaborative environment and seeing the other people in your office and knowing your colleagues and building relationships and culture and all that stuff is really important.
I will say that it's not that it can't work. In fact, we work with a team in Istanbul, in Turkey. I have a team in London, and we can work together collaboratively on projects, and it works. So it's not that it can't work. The core team, however, coming together and working together really, I think, is essential. And particularly if you're going to be a culture first company and you're going to focus on building a team that he's evolved into a whole nother level. I think if everybody was in their own homes doing this remotely, you would lose that.
Totally. Cool. Well, Matthew, really want to thank you for coming on the show today and speaking with me and sharing your story. And I'd love to have you back on again at some point and have a part 2, especially in 2025, and kind of hear how things are going in the new year for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. I think that it's going to be a really big year, or certainly bigger year in 2025. I hope so.
Me too.
A lot of people really got hit in the last few years. Feel very fortunate to be where we're at today and to be busy and hiring people. But, a lot of people got hit on this, and I think a lot of it will come back because of the unions, the strikes that happened just after the pandemic. I think it's going to be a bigger year. It's going to be a lot of exciting projects out there.
I hope you're right. I think the scale will level out as well. And I think, the world needs great art. And I think that this is an opportune time for some really great art and things to really come out. At least I'm hoping for it.
Yeah, I am too. That's why we started that foundation, so we can support people on a micro level and then on a macro level. I think that the world is at a place where it only can express itself and has to, and I think that will turn into an opportunity for a lot of people.
Definitely. I agree. Well, thanks again, Matthew. And I look forward to continuing the conversation in the new year, and have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. You be well.
All right, man. Cheers. Bye.